This video is going to be all about the Jks 2.5 series suspension I put under my 2021 Wrangler 392. I'm going to go into on-road performance, off-road performance, and we're going to deep dive into tires and wheels and some of the issues and solutions that I have found for this platform. Now, you may remember in my last video, I broke down why I went with this Jks 2.5-inch suspension kit, some things I opted for, and went over some highlights if you're going to be doing the install at home. Now, with that being said, let's jump right into on-road performance of this Jks kit. Now, one of the biggest things you'll notice is when you put your foot to the floor, you don't have that dramatic rear end squat with this suspension as you did with the previous suspension, and I like that a lot. It definitely makes the Jeep feel more controlled. It is worth noting that I primarily drive the Jeep daily driving with it set up in two-wheel drive. I'm using a Taser JL Mini from Z Automotive to accomplish that goal, and the reason being is I have seen a few cases where the clutch in the 3022 transfer case has failed and people have had transfer case issues. Now, it's worth noting the way this transfer case essentially works is when it's in 4 auto, it's actively sending different pressure to that clutch assembly to send power to the front drive line. When you're in 4 high, what's happening is it's actually locking that clutch unit together. Same thing within 4 low. So effectively, a clutch is going to be a wear item. If you burn up your clutch, you're essentially not going to have 4-wheel drive. So to preserve my clutch pack in my transfer case, I simply just run the Jeep in 2-wheel drive. The disadvantage of 2-wheel drive, mostly for the 392, is if you want to accelerate hard, you can still absolutely spin the tires. You couldn't 4 auto, and you most definitely can in 2-wheel drive. It's also worth noting that even though these are fixed control arms, they gave me 6.4 degrees of caster, which is actually more than what the caster setup was originally on this Jeep, and it drives nice. It doesn't have a lot of weird wander. With the Jeep being in 2-wheel drive and having those extra caster figures, it actually drives better, in my opinion, over stock. The suspension in terms of the coils, I mentioned before, the rear's a little bit tighter, the front's pretty similar. The big difference are the Fox 2.5 shocks. Fox recommends you go 3 settings in from completely soft and kind of start from there. I like to run for my daily driving 5 clicks in. So that's 5 clicks of high compression and 5 clicks of low compression. The only time that modifies in terms of on-road driving is, let's say I'm in the mountains and I've got my family, I've got a cooler and gear and all that good stuff. I will click up the low speed compression, which really helps with windy roads, make the Jeep feel a lot tighter. So that's my overall settings. You can 100% feel the difference with these shocks on road if you dial in the low speed more than anything else. If you dial back that low speed completely, you can definitely feel that it gets a little bit lighter and you get a little bit more sway. As you start to tighten that low speed up, you feel the Jeep tighten up, not stiffen, just tighten up so it doesn't feel like it's so wandering. I love that. It absolutely, if you're gonna get these shocks, learn to use them, adjust them, and you can get it finely tuned for what you like. Going from the 392's factory 2-inch lift to this 2.5-inch kit provided me with an extra 1.75 inches of lift up front and 1.5 inches out back. Though that might not seem like a major difference, the added ground clearance and suspension travel means the Jeep's frame no longer hits rock obstacles as frequently, and the issue I was having with the stock suspension constantly topping out and lifting a tire is no longer a problem. While I don't recommend driving your 392 like an Ultra 4 car, a few clicks in with the high-speed compression settings will allow you to drive more aggressively and controlled on the trail when you like. For those times when you just want to have a nice low-speed trail day with the family, you can dial back the compression adjusters to create a very plush ride that everyone will enjoy. As I mentioned in my previous video, JKS recommends a 37 by 1250 tire paired with a wheel with no more than 5 inches of backspacing. When I first purchased my 2021 392 with the Extreme Recon kit, one of the first things I did is actually swap out those great looking XR wheels for a set of AEV Pentler wheels that I happen to already have. Paired with a set of 37 by 1250 R17 Nitto Trail Grapplers, I love the overall look and performance of this tire and wheel combo. With the stock suspension, it really wasn't an issue, but as soon as I added on the new kit, I found that the high numerical backspacing allowed the 37s to rub the control arms, the front fluid reservoir hose, and the shock body out back, thanks to a lot more suspension travel. With my dad's Wrangler being optioned with a Extreme Recon kit as well, and already running a 37 by 1250 R17 Nitto Recon Grappler AT, I decided to do a quick wheel swap with him to see if the XR's 5.2 inches of backspacing would work with this setup, so I could ultimately just swap back to those wheels if I needed to. Unfortunately, I still managed to rub the fluid reservoir off-road with this setup, though not nearly as much as I did with the AEV wheels. With both tires being a true to size 37, I think the reality is I'm going to have to get a different wheel. Now, it's also worth noting with over a year of driving on the trail grapplers, it was a huge difference going to these Recon Grappler ATs. While I prefer a mud terrain tire in general for battling muddy trails here we often find in North Carolina, the fact is the Recon is a full 10 pounds lighter than the trail per tire. This is something you will feel immediately, and if you're trying to get the most performance out of your 392, well, this is probably a good tire to look at. The Recon Grappler is also a lot quieter than the Trail Grappler, though I don't really have an issue with the overall road noise of the Trail Grappler in general. Now, since neither one of these wheel sets are set up as a bead lock, I typically kept my trail pressure above 12 psi. While the Trail Grapplers definitely perform a little bit better off-road, I was incredibly impressed with how the Recons worked in general. I also managed to abuse these sidewalls on the Recons along with the wheels a little bit more than I intended, so I may have just forfeited my old wheel set to my dad. Now, before committing to a new wheel, I had one more tire and wheel package that I wanted to test. These are the 38 by 1350 R17 Nitto Trail Grapplers I pulled off of my gator colored Jeep Gladiator. They're mounted on a 17 by 8.5 wheel with 4 3/4 inches of backspacing. The wheel's made by Method. It's a really nice wheel, but what I wanted to see is what a 4 3/4 inch backspace wheel would look like under this Jeep. So far, it's giving me plenty of clearance in all of the suspension areas that I was concerned about, and for daily driving, it's not a big deal. I think 4 3/4 is going to be the right way to go. It's going to keep the scrub radius down, and if it clears with a 38, it will clear with a 37. Now, if you're curious, why not just run a 38, or hey, I'm thinking about a 2.5 inch lift in 38, all I can tell you right now is yes, you can drive down the highway with it. In terms of off-roading, I'm gonna go give it a shot and see, but if it looks like it's gonna rub too much, I'm gonna go ahead and pull these off and go back to a 37. One area that has been driving me crazy since I got this thing originally was the exhaust, specifically the tips. I like how it sounds, but I hated how far the exhaust tips hung down. I was really worried about this off-road. So what I did ultimately is I loosened the clamps and I was able to rotate them up, which actually got me a few inches of clearance. It sounds a little bit different, and the nice thing is whenever I want to go back to angling them down, let's say for highway use, or I just want to change the tone, there's actually alignment tabs, so you can easily slide them back over, turn them down, and it's going to be just like from the factory. Overall, I am very happy with how the J-Connect suspension works on road and off. I like that it's not a major height difference from the stock 2-inch suspension lift that came on the Jeep originally, and though opting for the Fox 2.5 Performance Elite Series shocks does put the retail price of this kit just under $5 grand, the investment is well worth it. Not only do the dual speed compression adjusters allow you to dial in the ride, but being able to adjust high and low speed compression settings means as the Jeep continues to see modifications, I can easily dial in the shocks to compensate for those upgrades. With a few months of driving under my belt, I can say at this point, there's nothing that I would want to change or modify about this kit. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and found it informative. If you ever have any questions, just drop them in the comments. You want to see what's going on behind the scenes and what I'm goofing up next, you can feel free to check me out on Instagram at Ali Mansour Editor. Until next time, hope to see you guys on the trail. Take care. Thanks for sticking around to the end. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please consider subscribing to the Driving Line channel. Our goal is to excite, entertain, and educate you on all things automotive. So if you want to come be part of our journey, please hit that subscribe button, and we hope to see you on the next video. Take care.